Welcome back to our sailing channel. We recently bought a new outboard engine for our dinghy, and there was a few things that I wish I had known before I bought it. To be honest, there's 3 crucial things that you really have to know before buying an outboard engine for your boat or dinghy, and I'll reveal those in this video. If you watch till the end, you also see our friend a total newbie at foil boarding to try that out behind the dinghy with this engine mounted on it. So stay tuned for that too. Alright, let's go. Hammers. And there is the outboard. The box is almost bigger than the dinghy. Happy?
Yeah.
Happy? Very happy. Well, let's try it out. Tip number 1. Make sure you get the right outboard engine shaft length that fits your boat or dinghy. Before I bought our outboard engine, I spent quite a few days reading online and asking around what kind of shaft length I needed for the dinghy. The shaft lengths come normally in 2 different sizes, short or long, short being 15 inches and long being 20 inches. The shaft length is normally measured on your boat from the top of the transom to the bottom of the boat, the lowest point. And for your outboard engine, it's measured from the mounting clips on the engine down to the cavitation plate. So from all the advice I got it online, the shaft length of your outboard engine needs to be as an absolute minimum the height that you measure from the top of the transom to the bottom of the boat. And supposedly the only downside of a shaft longer than that would be slight additional drag and of course a slightly increased chance of hitting something underneath the boat in shallow waters. In my case that was 42 centimeters, which is the same as 16.5 inches. So in my case, the 15-inch shaft would really be too short and the 20-inch shaft would be quite long, but at least it satisfies that criteria, being longer than 16.5 inches. So I went for the long shaft. Well, I was wrong. Beep. Is water, hij doet het? Hè? Dat is fijn. Wow. Leuk, papa is blij hè? Hij doet het. Hè? Stokkie. Gaat perfect Lily?
Ja.
Mooi, vind je het ook leuk?
Ja.
Goed zo. The long shaft model that I specifically ordered and received ended up scooping a lot of water from underneath the boat, pointing it vertically up and then bouncing back into the boat, flooding it very quickly when we would open the throttle more than half. So the correct advice for outboard engine shaft length to fit onto your boat or dinghy in our case has to be: the shaft length has to be exactly right, not too long, not too short. Kind of makes sense, but it's not really what I found when I did my research before, so that's why I made this video. And in addition, most dinghies would have been made to fit a short shaft outboard engine. Long shaft outboards are really intended for use, for example, behind a sailboat as an auxiliary source of power, or any other boat with a slightly deeper transom, but not normally for dinghies. If the make and model of your dinghy is known, you can also of course always check with the manufacturer what shaft length fits onto your boat. If the shaft of the outboard engine is too short, the risk is that the cooling water intake could come out of the water, so there's no cooling water going into the engine, resulting in an overheat, or even the propeller itself could come out of the water when moving at slightly higher speeds. And if a shaft is too long, well, aside from the other risks I mentioned, of course you could have the problem that I had, that the plates that are mounted on the shaft actually act as scoops, scooping the water up and then pointing it back into your boat, which is really not what you want. And in my case, that happened specifically because the anti-splash plate that is mounted on the outboard shaft as well was actually below the bottom of the boat, so it ended up being a scoop for pointing the water upwards instead of the other way around, keeping it away and down from the boat. Tip number 2 related to the engine size. So before buying our outboard engine for the dinghy, I really wanted to make sure that I was able to tow a foil boarder or a wakeboarder behind the boat. So what size of engine are you gonna really need? Would a 10 horsepower be enough? Maybe a 15 or a 20? Well, I really didn't know. I asked to test ride some other dinghies, but that didn't work out in the end, so I just had to take a gamble and well, I just went for the biggest that would fit onto my dinghy, which was the 20 horsepower Mercury 4-stroke engine. Luckily, I can tell you that the 20 horsepower Mercury Outboard that I went for is absolutely fine for wakeboarding behind the dinghy or for towing a foil boarder as well. So I'm really happy with that.
Wow, I think this is going to be take 1.
Yeah, let's pick it up. Once we get
we've got Wade helping us.
Straighten you out.
Yeah, okay.
Mama, how's Papa take?
He's going to try. I see
You
a
ready to
thumbs up.
try?
Yeah.
Oh, high
Well,
There he is, up on his board. More, he wants it faster.
he's got to go higher though.
And that's on our dinghy, which has a length of just over 3 meters and it has a hard bottom with inflatable sides and front. The only downside to the engine, which is something that we didn't know, but is the weight of it, but we'll come to that in the third point. Just to reiterate, make sure that the engine size that you're going for does actually match the capacity of the dinghy that you already have. Tip number 3, the weight of the engine and how to get it mounted onto your dinghy. So the last thing to be sure of is the weight of your engine and are you able to lift it onto your dinghy if that's something that you're going to be frequently doing. I guess it matters much less if you're just going to mount it onto your boat and keep it there forever. But in our case, with our particular setup, we store the engine on board the big boat and then once we want to use the dinghy, we take it off of there and we have to move it onto the dinghy and mount it there. With an engine of this size, 45 kilos, it's impossible to do it without some mechanical assistance. But before this outboard, we only had a 4 horsepower outboard engine and the weight was maybe around 20 kilos. It was actually quite easy to lift it from the boat and mount it onto the dinghy. Even in some choppy waters, like in an anchorage that is not really smooth, it was no problem. With this new engine, there's simply no chance. So we are in the process of having made a hoist that's going to be mounted onto the boat. That's going to help us to lift it onto and off of the dinghy. But that is still a work in progress for now. Keep in mind though that such a hoist will of course require a few stainless steel bars and a few hours of workmanship, so it will easily cost a few $100s to get something like that sorted. And that's it. Those are my 3 tips for buying an outboard engine to mount onto your boat or dinghy. I think it was quite helpful. I wish this video was there before I made my decisions because I would have not made the same mistakes. But if you do have still any questions, make sure to write them down below in the comments. And then here's a bit more footage of the drone behind the dinghy and our friend Lorian as well, trying his first goes at the foil board behind the dinghy. We did have a lot of fun. We hope to have many more days like that as well. And then you might wonder what I did to correct that problem of the shaft length. So what I did is raise the transom with a couple sheets of marine ply and some steel supports, engine mounted on top of that, and off we went. Problem solved. Right, just a quick update to show what we are working on. So we're flying the drone from the dinghy today. And of course there's a few challenges with that, right? Launching the drone off the water and then landing it again, grabbing it back in. And of course, how are you gonna film? Because if you're steering the dinghy with the outboard and then steering the drone at the same time, that's gonna be quite tricky. Usually Jolene is busy either holding the dog or holding the kids, so that's not an option either. So you're gonna have to rely on the automatic mode of the drone. But that's really cool. This drone, the Mavic Air 2S, can follow the objects by visually tracking them on the screen. So you literally select the target on the screen that stands out a little bit, then select the mode that you want to do, circle the object, trace the object or parallel fly with it, and hit go. Press record, not to forget that, otherwise you'll end up with no recorded footage. I've done that before. And then you are good to go. So this little video is just to show you what the results will be then. And yeah, we're just playing basically in the marina, right? But just getting used to whatever we have. And maybe, yeah, try out the little dinghy with the new 20 horsepower engine as well, which is pretty exciting. And then later on, hopefully we can come out with some foiling, tow foiling behind the dinghy. That would be really epic. But of course it requires some practice. Let's show you the footage. Hope you enjoy it a bit. Steering here as well. This one you can push towards you, then you can steer it. I hope it's not bouncy. We will find out. No blood yet.
Okay.
Yeah,
If anything happens, it's not our fault.
That thing is not without its dangers, definitely. So also, even if you're like moving your feet near the board, very easily you kick into the sharp point. You'll find out anyway. You'll find out. So
mind the sharp bits.
Okay? And enjoy.
Feel alive!
First time for him on a foil. This is gonna be crazy. He's so ready though, so let's see. And here we are back at the boat. Right, I hope that was fun. See you soon, guys.